What's up, guys? Alex here with another video update. I had a couple of followers reach out to me and they told me they wanted me to elaborate on the overcoming adversity video from a previous video before. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things that happened and how I overcame these things, okay? First, we're going to go back in time. 9 years old in Hampshire, Illinois, small town, middle of nowhere. No stoplights, none of that. We had a stop sign, a four-way stop at the time. And now I think I know why it makes sense why we moved out that far away. Because at the time, my dad had restaurants in the city of Chicago and that direction, and eventually kept moving us more west to the point where we were in a town of the middle of nowhere. But it was a beautiful town regardless. I love the town. So anyways, 9 years old, sitting on the couch there with my mom and brothers before bedtime, and we see the 10 o'clock news, and I see my dad on TV in handcuffs being walked out by police. And I remember, I'm 35 now, I'm going back in time at 9 years old, and I remember seeing the screen so vividly, and right now, it's vivid. The whole thing, like the temperature in the room, just the whole feeling, everything, right? The smell of the room, all these years later. And I see my dad getting handcuffed, some woman getting handcuffed, who we later found out was my dad's girlfriend. And then several other gentlemen who happened to be accomplices of my father. I remember when that happened, it's like a feeling you can't describe because you're in a state of shock, disbelief. You feel like you're in a weird dream. That's how I felt for those few seconds, minutes. But that bad dream lasted for many years after that. But that moment specifically, that's what I feel like changed my life, for better and for worse, both. I still have, I would sit here and lie and like, oh, it didn't bother me. It did a lot of mental damage to me, especially during my youth. But I feel like the one good thing about that crazy experience of what happened with that and the poverty that led to after that for 10 years after that, I believe that's what led me to a multimillionaire later in my life when I, got older. But again, that's for later, another time. So my dad goes to prison. We learn that he gets in trouble for kidnapping a mafia guy who supposedly owed my father $100,000. And then during the shock, we were losing our house in Hampshire, ended up moving to another town as a kid. And I remember just the pressure of losing the house, moving to a new town, just being embarrassed, trying to make sense of everything, not trying to have kids find out what happened, knowing why we're moving and what happened to our father, right? It's not something you want to tell kids, like, yeah, our dad got kidnapped, or he kidnapped someone and almost killed a guy. All kinds of craziness, right? Especially at 9, 10 years old when and then we moved when I was in junior high to another town in Illinois, about 20, 30 minutes from there. And throughout my childhood, I had severe insomnia problems from the anxiety, depression, obesity. I gained a ton of weight. All I was doing was eating junk food. Now, my mom tried her very best raising us 3 boys on her own. However, I think this part she could have done a lot better. She was a younger mother. And I don't know if she just didn't know, but that was one thing I feel like she could have done better. But besides that, everything else, she tried her very best, and I'm grateful for that. Through that time, I had, it was a very dark time in my life, just going through the motions every day. I would just go in the back of the classroom and just wonder when my dad was going to get out. Even though he wasn't necessarily at our house even before he went to prison. There's times he was gone for months at a time. And back then there wasn't really phones and it was hard to get a hold of him. He'd just randomly show up a couple months, whip some money on the counter, and then leave again for a few weeks or months. And that was the childhood, dad wasn't really in the picture. I remember times, I'd go with him when I was really young and we would go to his restaurants and I would see some weird stuff when I was like even younger than 9. Things that I'm never going to forget. When he had a bar, When you got the sports bar, that's when things started really going, south. And maybe that's why I'm not a fan of drinking either. I don't know if that's a byproduct of that memory, but maybe it is. We'll see. But anyways, junior high, high school, elementary school was rough. Didn't have too many friends. I was that fat nerdy kid in the back of the classroom that would just draw notes, and I was like this. I had raccoon eyes, like really bad raccoon eyes, like really bad. And I would always look straight up, and I'd look at the clock, and I would tell myself, like, wow, it's just 10 minutes have passed, 30 minutes have passed, an hour have passed. And every day I felt like I was in prison in school too. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. I just did not apply myself. I was so mentally tired and exhausted from the insomnia that I was failing everything left and right. And every time we had a Scantron test, right, an exam, I literally just, I didn't care. I just put everything B, D, C, A with a pencil, and D's and F's. I don't even know how I passed, to be honest. That's how bad the grades were. Moving on, right? Made it to college somehow, and I graduated somehow. And again, it was just barely, just like at the bare minimum, just barely passing college too. College was a little bit better. I started losing some weight. And then at this time, my dad gets out, sophomore year of college. He gets out after his 10-year sentence. And I just remember, I'm like, wow, I remember going to visit my dad every couple of weeks, a few hours away at the penitentiary. And the raw emotion of seeing him in there locked up, and I'm like, man, how many more years is it going to be like that? And then 10 years passed after going to see him every couple of weeks. And by the way, if you ever go inside of a prison, pretty intense stuff, the stuff you'll see in there. Saw a lot of wild stuff in there, just all kinds of craziness stuff, right? So 10 years passes by. I'm in the college. My dad gets out of prison. We think he's going to change. He didn't. I don't know if the 10 years made him goofier or what happened, but he couldn't just get back on track. So I pretty much kicked him out of my life for good, and so did the rest of my brothers and my mom as well. And that was another blow too, because I thought, wow, I can't wait till my dad gets out after 10 years. Maybe I can go into business with him or learn from him. I had that hope all those 10 years when he was gone. I was like, when dad gets out, maybe I can, learn business from him, because I just started getting the business myself. I started a lawn care business, little things like that. But I was excited for that thought. And it didn't work out. So I felt like as if we went to go visit him for 10 years, and it was just a waste of time, of hope, waste of energy. So as that time passes, it was another time of like sorrow. And then during college, I just had to get preoccupied. And for me, what preoccupied me the most was entrepreneurship. And then I started dabbling in some online businesses, and I started one site. My first tech business, I guess you can call it. I didn't know anything about tech or anything with social media or anything like that, but started a business, attempted, right? And I didn't make it. I barely made any money on it. It was a college chat room website where you could chat with other kids from other classrooms, other universities. The guy that I had paid, the designer to design the site, that was my first big mistake. It was just the guy just took the money up front and took his sweet time developing the site. And when he did develop the site, it was like half the site wasn't working properly. We ended up, and the crazy thing was this, I ended up getting featured on an MTV documentary. And I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I don't know if I was that naive and dumb, but I had a couple million views, and a bunch of people came on the site. Site crashed. The site wasn't working. Site was terrible. But then I learned that I was pretty good at marketing. So that was one good takeaway from that experience. But I ended up losing 3-4 years of my time for that. And losing time on that business, a couple $1,000s, actually like 15,000 bucks, all the waste. So I had to start over again. Um, but wow, did I learn quite a bit on that MTV documentary. I got roasted online by some entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs that are, big money guys. But wow, did I learn from them. And oddly enough, I ran into this guy. He was from OkCupid. Sam Yegan was his name. A couple years later, I ran into him, oddly enough, at a 4th of July party in another state. And I'm like, hey, man, you remember me? And he's like, yeah. He's like, the first few minutes, he's like, I don't remember. He's like, oh, I do remember you. And he said what I'm up to. And I told him, well, I said, I'm doing well. And I have a service business now. We're kicking butt. And here's the numbers. And he's like, glad to hear, man. I mean, the internet thing wasn't your thing, but this was. So reach out to me in the future again. I said, okay, for sure. So that happens. Internet business fails. I started another internet business. I thought that one was going to do well. That one I kept private. I didn't tell too many people about it. It was like a humor website. I blew that sucker up pretty quickly with $0 spent. I got to like a couple 100,000 social media followers, a couple million YouTube views in a year. And then bam, someone reached out to me. It was Q from WorldStar Hip Hop who wanted information on the site. And at the time I should have sold it. I don't know if I was just, my ego got in the way, but I said, no. I said, I want to hold on to it and grow it some more and see where it goes. Like, okay. And then I changed my mind down the road. I wanted to reach back out to him, and he had passed away, unfortunately. So shortly after that happened, also the site was no longer running because I was having issues with copyright issues, and the algorithms on social media were messing up everything where I couldn't get any views anymore. So I don't know what happened. That at the time, that's where I wish I would have had some help. Especially on the tech side of things, to figure out why things weren't going. The views weren't happening anymore. It was just a big mess. So I stopped that site as well. A couple business failures later, landscaping, lawn care, and then oddly enough, the junk removal business is the one that took off. Did that, busted my butt for 10 years, every day, busting my butt, every day, 6-7 days a week. 10-hour days, 10 years. And then I invested quite a bit of it into crypto. On paper, I made quite a bit. It went up like bonkers. And then I lost it all. Not all, most of it, 90%. And then it went back up and lost most of it again. And it went back up again. So as this was happening, the Lyme disease was playing into effect during my junk removal days. In the middle of that, that's when I started to realize the breathing issues were happening, and the fatigue and the brain fog and all that. It's a lot of craziness, right? So as all this was happening, right, fast forward down the road, at 35 now, which is when I'm 35, I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how did I get through all this craziness, right? And sometimes I try not to think about it too much because it was such a profound and deep pain, all these experiences I went through, right? My dad in prison, the embarrassment, being obese, hiding in the locker room because I was like the fat kid, getting picked on in school. God, what else? Just being completely broke, not able to afford things. Business failures, internet failures, right? Just one after another. Lyme disease, not being able to breathe, just the neurological issues, severe fatigue. I couldn't function. I couldn't even, even just having friends was getting hard. Like, just because I couldn't see my friends, I was so embarrassed to go out with the Lyme disease problem. Even getting into relationships was a struggle too. I was embarrassed to tell people like, hey, I can't go out. I'm like so exhausted. I can't move. I was like a zombie, And with that being said, I'm still here. And that's my message to you. Survived Lyme. As far as the health stuff, the insomnia problem's fixed for the most part. I have an occasional bad night of sleep if I have a lot of stress going on, which I had, on the last few months. I had my service business. I had an employee total $100,000 brand new truck. It's been on my mind a lot lately, but everyone was okay. And then shortly after, my main manager was involved in a car crash with his girlfriend as well. So some employees quit. They didn't want to wait for the new truck to come back. It was just, I was trying everything to make them stick around. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, this is a situation now until the new truck comes in or a replacement. So, yeah, a lot of ups and downs. I didn't even get to you guys about the other stuff as well with Coinbase stealing half $1,000,000 from me, and I did a class action lawsuit, and I only got $16,000 back from them. So, yeah, if you saw my other video, The Life of Extremes, I think that was like one of my first videos on here. I didn't really get into the part of the benefits of what happens after you come out of these moments, okay? And that's what the next few minutes are going to be about. I feel as if at this point that I've gone through so much crazy stuff, right? Survival, right? Poverty, health, severe health issues, right? Just all kinds of stuff, depression, anxiety, the Lyme disease with the breathing problems especially, that was like probably one of the worst ones. And then also the insomnia, right? Just sleeping like 3-4 hours a night for 10, 15 years is, I don't know how I'm still here, to be honest. I'm actually shocked I'm still here. So, and the obesity, losing 100 pounds. I'm going to get to another video on that in the future. That's one I get a lot of questions on, how I got rid of the 100 pounds. So we're here now, right? Survive the avalanche, multiple avalanches, right? Survive them. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I feel as if there's some kind of comfort now, in a way. And that might sound weird to you guys. You might think, well, comfort, why would you have comfort with all this crazy stuff you went through, right? And, even, not even the Lyme disease, when I had MRSA, that was pretty serious as well. I left a small gaping hole in my leg as well. It was pretty serious. I couldn't move my leg. I was having pain in my gums and teeth. My leg could barely walk on it. Even through that experience, right? I had some kind of calmness to me saying, Alex, you figured out the Lyme disease, you figured out these other huge obstacles, business failures, losing millions, making it back. Like, when you go through all this stuff, right, you become so mentally tough, and you have such a hard demeanor, like not demeanor, what's the word I'm looking for? A resolve. You almost become like your own shield, like a physical shield, where just at some point, doesn't matter what attacks you or what hits you, you're almost becoming bulletproof at this point. And I feel like that's where the comfort comes from. I've been through so much crazy stuff. I'm surprised I'm still here. And excuse me. With that being said, a lot of people, I feel like, could benefit from this video, because I think a lot of people go through some hardships and they think it's the end of the world. And it's natural to feel like that. It's natural to think that. But I'm going to tell you something. Some people have pretty easy lives. Some people have completely crazy lives too, where they have cancer and kids dying and in their family. Really bad stuff, right? I haven't gotten to that point, but I haven't been to the other extreme either. So I think I want to emphasize this. Each time you go through a particular struggle, think of your bulletproof vest getting deeper and stronger and tougher and better, right? And you're the bulletproof vest, you, and the bullets are life, right? That's life. You're going to have family problems, health problems, friend problems, finance problems, right? It's not about the problems. It's not about the problems at all. It's about how you deal with the problems and how you thrive after you deal with those problems. That's what this video is about. It's not the problems itself. It's how you deal with the problems. What was a game changer for me? Spending a lot of time in nature, going for walks alone, a digital detox away from the phone, and true friends. If you have these three things, right, this is going to help you. And on top of that, a healthy diet as well. I want to stress that as well. Things do get better, guys. I don't know what situation you're going through right now, but if you're going through something hard right now, comment below. Let's see what you're going through. Tell us your story of how you're dealing with the problem that you're currently going through, and let us know what is it that you're going through, and what are you doing to cope with it. And I also want to say this too to end the video. I'll get into this topic in a separate video as well. Whatever you do, if you're going through a difficult time and you're trying to overcome adversity, do not look to drugs, do not look to alcohol, or abusing anything like that. Even food, by the way. You could abuse food. Avoid. If you want to have a wine, maybe a cup here and there, a drink once in a while is okay. But even that, I've cut out. Maybe I might have a wine or an alcoholic beverage maybe on Christmas once a year, if that, maybe twice. There's no need for it. Drugs, never got into it. Cigarettes, never got into it. And I could see how it's very easy to fall into those traps, to find an escape through the stress you're going through. And guys, there's ways out of it. It's done naturally. Okay. That's the main emphasis of this channel, is everything we're going to do is going to be naturally and the most healthy way to fix these issues. So I'm still standing, and you're gonna stand too. But in order for you to keep standing and to thrive, you need to take those steps to get better, stronger, and faster in your life. That's all I got for now. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you thought it was interesting, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, leave a comment below. Until next time, see you later.